we can use this canonical correlation. For example, another example that I'm quoting is, a researcher might study how exercise variables related to health variables such as BP, cholesterol, and Boss Modi index. Here, exercise variables means there may be many exercise variables, isn't it? How all those exercise variables are related to health variables. Health variables such as
Sir,
BP, cholesterol, and body mass index.
sir, now you can share your screen.
ఓకే, థ్యాంక్ యూ. ఇంతవరకు ఏమైందమ్మా?
Sir, host not yet joined, just now host joined, and
ఆహా,
now you are host.
భోజనం చేస్తున్నారు హోస్ట్ గారు. యా, థ్యాంక్ యూ వెరీ మచ్. వాట్ ఇస్ ద గుడ్ నేమ్, మేడం?
Sunanda, sir.
Sunanda, it's very nice because you helped me now. Now you can also watch or view on the screen. So I am talking about the principal component that we have discussed that one, because large size data will be reduced to small data. Example is big images will be reduced to small images. Now canonical correlation, we're talking about canonical correlation analysis. The example is, researcher might study how exercise variables related to health variables such as BP, cholesterol, and Boss-Modi index. So exercise
Nap
variables,
time. Sorry.
there are many variables with regard to exercises. How all those exercise variables related to health variables. Those health variables are BP, cholesterol, and body mass index. So when there are many independent variables and there are many dependent variables, now I think you can also see the correlation among those variables. So many exercise variables will be considered to study their relation with the health variables, and health variables means many variables. The example is BP is one variable, dependent variable, cholesterol is another dependent variable, and body mass index is also another dependent variables. And all these three dependent variables, how much change is being effected by the exercise variables. Those exercise variables, pretty well, it may be jumping or it may be some kind of doing, floor exercises, standing exercises, and all those things are there. If you consider them as exercise variables, maybe 3 or 4, and how these 3 or 4 independent variables, which we can call them as exercise variables, are related to health variables, and those health variables are BP, cholesterol, and Basmati index. So I think in order to understand the relations between many independent variables and many dependent variables, we can use canonical correlation analysis. Canonical means it meant for identifying the relationship between two sets of variables. Next one is cluster analysis. Inoperable cluster means reduce the large data set to a meaningful subgroups of individual objects which are very similar. Similarity, on the base of the similarity of the objects, you try to group them. That group is known as cluster. So in order to have clusters, and you are trying your level best by choosing the similarities of the objects. So similar objects will be grouped into a one particular group. So in order to have that kind of similar groups, we can call it as clusters. This is a greater tool for segmentation, especially these kind of things will be used in the business circles. But here the example is group of schools or students with similar properties. Students with similar properties will be grouped as one, that is a cluster. Similarly, a group of schools. There are many schools. We can call them as nearby schools. Say, for example, all the government schools, which are very near. So it's about 3 kilometers or 4 kilometers between them. I think all those 3 kilometer, 4 kilometer schools, which are government schools, they will be clubbed. So that clubbed kind of schools, we can call them as cluster schools also. If there are 3, 4 schools which are nearby, we try to call them as cluster schools. At times, all these schools will also, the teachers will be coming to certain training programs or some kind of issue to be discussed, because they try to share all those things. When there's a cluster kind of schools, then we can call it as cluster analysis on the basis of the similarity or otherwise the properties. If there are similar properties, if all those properties are clubbed, then we can call it as cluster analysis. Or similar objects. All the similar objects will be grouped one. So that thing, for that purpose, we can use cluster analysis. Then the multi-dimensional scaling. The purpose of multi-dimensional scaling is to transfer consumer judgments of similarity into distances represented in multi-dimensional space. For example, where you are going or traveling or making journey, you try to see the maps, road maps. They will indicate the distance between one city to another city. So this multi-dimensional scaling, that means understanding the distances between the different objects or between the different items or different places. So I think for that purpose, understand the distance between the places or the objects or the items, we can use multi-dimensional scaling when there are many dimensions. So what is the distance between one city to another city? That you can see while making journeys. You can find to your left side some boards or some kind of indications from this place to that place. This is the distance, or otherwise you can call it as mapping the cities. So given the distances between cities, multi-dimensional scaling can create a map that shows which cities are closer together and which is far apart. So this kind of multi-dimensional scaling is meant for understanding the distance between the places or between the objects. For that purpose, we can use this multi-dimensional scaling. Also analyzing emotions. Multis can be used to visualize similar or different emotions are pursued by people. So what are the similar emotions? So for understanding those similarity of emotions which are visualized by people, this can also be used. This multi-dimensional scaling can also be used for understanding the similar emotions which are expressed by the people. Or otherwise, the best example is the distance between the cities that can be mapped. So for understanding the distance between the cities which are very close, so we try to have this mapping. That mapping the cities, in other words, we can call it as multi-dimensional scaling of analysis. Then the last one, which we are all connected with this. I think everybody is using nowadays the cell phones or other mobiles.
Yeah.
That smart mobiles, conjoint analysis. Conjoint analysis is often referred to as trade-off analysis, in that allow for the evaluation of objects and the various levels of the attributes to be examined. There are many, of course, attributes in your mobile. Your mobile may be having several options with a different battery life, camera quality, screen size, and price. These are the various attributes of your mobile. So this conjoint analysis is meant for understanding with regard to the various attributes of an object or a thing. For analysis purposes, we can use this kind of conjoint analysis technique. The best example is the smartphone that we are using, how many options it has. So there are so many options, isn't it? You have the camera, you have the battery life, then you have the screen size and also price, and there may be other options. There may be so many apps in that. There are many facilities, isn't it? So when there are many facilities and at the same time the price will also be very high. So like this, I think we are all talking about in terms of conjoint analysis. They are conjointed. All these things put together, that is the smartphone, which contains so many attributes, so many attributes. Then in order to examine those, in order to examine those attributes, we can use conjoint analysis. So
Sir,
conjoint is a trade-off. Yeah.
So
Please.
this is the last one, no? In this
Yeah,
conjoint?
this will be the last one, sir.
Yeah, but one I know that 19.2.5 multivariate analysis of variance, MANOVA.
Okay. So this is one. Anyway, I'm coming to that point, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let us complete this last one. Conjoint analysis is meant for examining the attributes of the items. Attributes may be the example with regard to the smartphone, which are having many options. So in order to examine all those options of the facilities that you have with regard to your smartphone, we can use conjoint analysis. Then you are talking about multistats of
MANOVA,
MANOVA.
19.2.5. Yes.
Yeah.
Analysis of variance.
Yes. Now I think you are seeing that on the screen.
Yes, sir.
Multivariate analysis of variance, MANOVA.
Yeah.
So this technique examines the relationship between the several category independent variables and two or more metric. Yeah. The first one is multiple regression analysis, where you find many independent variables and one dependent variable. Multiple regression analysis, isn't it?
Yeah.
In order to understand the several independent variables contribution in the single dependent variable, we use multiple regression analysis.
Yes.
But whereas the case of MANOVA, you find more independent variables or more than two dependent variables. The difference is here you are having more than two dependent variables and more than two independent variables. So when you want to know more than two independent variables, their contribution to the dependent variables whose number is also more than two. If there are two or more, I think I was also doing this kind of exercise for my MPhil and also PhD. If you have three or more dependent variables, how are you going to use your independent variables which are also more than two? If there are more than two or three independent variables whose contribution is to be examined in the dependent variables, and the dependent variables also be maybe more than two. So when there is a case like this, you can use this multivariate analysis of variance. That means here there are more than two independent variables and more than two independent variables. You are trying to examine the influence of all those independent variables in the dependent variables. So I think here the number of dependent variables is more than two, but in the case of regression analysis, you have only dependent variable one. But here the dependent variables are more than two, independent variables also more than two. When you are increasing the number of variables, maybe dependent variables, independent variables, how they act and react, how they are related. So for understanding that purpose, we try to use this multivariate analysis of variance. Very short, we can call it as MANOVA. MANOVA is meant for understanding the contribution of more than two independent variables on the more than two dependent variables. And with this, we have completed this multivariate analysis. I think this is a very good important one, because you may use some of these things if you are going to take up research, and how these things to be tried out. You have to, if you want to use these techniques, you should also consult the statistician for analysis of your data. If more number of independent variables, more number of dependent variables are included in our studies, what kind of multivariate analysis technique can be applied for the analysis purpose? That is in brief. That's all about for this with regard to
Techniques of multivariate analysis.
yes, multivariate analysis techniques. This is very good. There may be a question on these things. If you get essay question, you have to describe or explain all these analysis techniques. Then let us move into the next one. And with this, I think we have completed as far as the analysis of quantitative data, how the quantitative data can be analyzed using various statistical techniques. So for whatever that we have discussed with regard to analysis, I think they will come under quantitative data, because there is a score, there is a numerical, there are some weightages. So therefore, when there are weightages, scores or marks and other things, then what kind of technique, statistical technique that you can employ for analysis purposes. And all these things will come under analysis techniques for analysis of the quantitative data. Because statistical part is included, statistical techniques are there, because when the scores are in the form of numbers or numericals, and when the responses are converted into numbers, when there is a number or quantification, you have to use these kind of statistical techniques. And with this, we have completed unit number 19. And now we are moving to unit number 20, techniques of qualitative analysis. I think I shared this particular PPT. Have you seen this? Unit number 20, Techniques of Qualitative Analysis. Friends, techniques of qualitative analysis.
Just checking.
Sir, can that be shared in this group if possible?
I shared this part. Techniques of qualitative analysis. I think that is shared. Is it okay?
Yeah.
You kindly go through because the PPT seems I cannot change. If I want to change the present PPT, again it will take time. And you kindly try to see,
Sure, sir. Thank you.
because that PPT is with you, then I will be explaining all those things, because that PPT, I have to change the PPT, means it will take time also. Can I?
No problem, sir. Thank you.
Yes, now we are moving to qualitative analysis. Yeah, qualitative research. Long back, we try to understand what this qualitative research is or was. Qualitative research means here you are trying your level best to understand the each and every aspect of your research, each and every aspect of the research. So even the minute things you are not going to ignore, but here you are not going to get the statistics. Here you are not going to get the statistics like that of the quantitative data. When the qualitative data means here you are trying to understand each and every aspect, each and every in detail. This is a microscopic kind of thing. In detail, you are trying your level best to understand each aspect. So when you are studying each and every aspect very minutely, very clearly, in detail, that is known as qualitative research. Then what are the various techniques? What are the various techniques that we can use for qualitative analysis? So qualitative means you are trying your level best to understand each and every aspect of your study, that in detail, very comprehensively, and very minutely. That means it's far better than the quantitative research. There you are talking about the means, but here each individuals will be studied. But whereas in quantitative research, you are trying your level best to study using that means that is a value of a group of students, value of group students score. You are trying your level to understand the group score there. But whereas here in this qualitative analysis, you are studying each and every individual. If there are 10 students, you are trying to, not trying, you are studying all those 10 students independently. Complete picture. But whereas in quantitative research, you are trying to see what is the mean score of that particular 10 students. Based on that only, you are doing the analysis. You are doing the analysis considering the means and other things, but whereas in qualitative data, each and every student, you are trying your level best to understand what the student is all about with regard to the scores. But whereas in quantitative data, you are going to see the mean score of those 10 students, then you are analyzing that data. But here, you are analyzing each and every individual. Well, friends, this qualitative analysis, normally, the social sciences, you can use this one, economics, those people, like anything you want to describe. If anything you want to describe, then you can use this qualitative data analysis. There are many techniques of qualitative data analysis. It's a qualitative data collection. Then what are the various techniques or the tools that you can use for data collection with regard to qualitative researches means you can have the observations. These are the tools that you can also use. How the individuals are behaving. We have also discussed these things earlier. So that particular tool can also be used for analysis purpose with regard to the qualitative research. So observations, biographies, focus groups, in-depth interviews, mass media output, documentary and historical records, internet sources. And all these tools can be used for collecting the data, for understanding the individuals, or understanding the objects, or the human beings, of the participants. So these are the various tools that you can employ to understand the complete picture of that particular human being, the objective. And the tools are the observation, the biographies, the focus groups, in-depth interviews, recordings of the conversations, then also mass media outputs. Papers might have, all these daily newspapers might have covered the news with regard to the events. I think you're supposed to search all those material also for getting the complete picture. So you are not ignoring even simple issue of that particular individual if you are concentrating on that particular individual. So documented historical records, what are the various records available with regard to the particular individual or the objects? Similarly, internet sources also. These are the various qualitative data collection methods or the tools that we can employ for collecting the data. By using these tools, you are collecting the data from different angles by using all these tools. So I think this is one of the techniques that we can collect the data by way of administering all these tools. Now, next one is thematic analysis. Thematic. Thematic means themes. Now the data is with you. You think with all the available tools, just now mentioned, observation, biographies, focus groups, in-depth, so on and so forth. With all these tools, you have collected the data from the field, from the human beings or the participants. Then the data is before you. The data is before you. Then you have to understand what that data describes. What that data describes about the society, about the relationships, about the languages, about the conversation, about the occupations, and about the styles, about the traditions. So in order to understand all these things of the society, you have to collect the data. From that data, then you have to analyze. So you have already collected the data using the observations, biographies, focus group interviews, then in-depth interviews, also recordings, mass media, so on and so forth. Then after doing all these things, and the data is before you, and then you have to analyze that data with regard to various things of the human beings or the society. Then for that purpose, the first one is thematic analysis. What kind of themes that you can collect out of this data? The data that you have collected, what kind of themes that will tell you or describe, the data describes which themes. Is it the health theme, or is it the occupational theme, or the traditions, the customs, the relationships, or the language, or the conversations, or other issues of the human beings? Which part of the human beings this particular data will tell you? What kind of data related to human beings? So these are all things we can call them as thematic. Thematic means you are getting or extracting certain themes out of the data that you have collected. Those themes may be, it may be health theme, or it may be occupations, or it may be relationships between in the society. So I think there would be many things, isn't it? So all those things we can call them as themes. These themes will be extracted out of the data that the researchers has collected. So I think you can also divide them into sub-themes also. Say for example, health is there. You can also divide into different sub-themes. It may be related to TB, it may be related to heart problems, it may be related to some other problems, isn't it? That health area will be subdivided into sub-themes. So there would be, out of this particular data, you are extracting the various themes. Now those themes would be again divided into sub-themes also. So that will tell you what kind of data that is collected by you with regard to the given society in which you are conducting the research. So therefore, this thematic analysis, then what we have to do is first transcribing textual data. Textual means acts. Transcribing what are the various activities that tell you what kind of activities. So first step in this particular thematic analysis is, the basic step is transcribing textual data. Recording something related to written parts or spoken or right. by writing it down. So what kind of themes means what are the various issues that are extracted. So that you have to, we can call it as textual data, because in the written form, when that particular issue is in the written form, in the recorded form, we can call it as textual data. That has to be analyzed. That data has to be analyzed. Then by analyzing that data, you are going to get or identify the themes and sub-themes. So the data, whichever is in front of you, then out of that, you have to analyze particular data. Then that data will help you to extract the themes and the sub-themes. So themes and the sub-themes, those themes may be related to human beings, related to health area, related to occupational area, related to animal husbandry area, related to the relationships that are prevailing in the society, related to some ailments, related to some other issues where the society is facing. So all these things we can call them as themes. And if you divide them and categorize them into, you can also categorize them into sub-themes. Each theme can be divided into sub-themes also. The next one is grounded theory. This is one of the ways for analyzing the qualitative data. The first one is you are collecting the data. Then out of that collected data, you are trying your level best by way of thematic analysis. By using the thematic analysis, you are trying to understand what are the themes that are able to be extracted from the data and the sub-themes, and also the another angle that particular data has to be studied. That is grounded theory. Grounded theory means in the ground, in the field, you are collecting the data with the interaction. With the interaction of the human beings or the participants of your study, you are interacting with them, then you are collecting the data from them related to various issues on which you would like to understand. So the researcher is interested in customs, in traditions, in various festivals, maybe festivals. So in order to understand all those things, he has to visit the field, he has to contact the participants, then he has to collect the data. So if you are doing this kind of data collection in the field, we can call it as grounded theory, because this helps for adding to the theory. So that information will be added to the theory. So whenever or whatever that you are collecting and finally finding out the various issues related to the society, and those things will be formed into a theory. So for that purpose, you are collecting the data and the data from the participants, and this is meant for developing the theory. And whatever you that collect, you have to compare what is today, a visit, after 1 week, a visit, what I say, am I able to do it or stick to the word? So comparison are made of what someone has said or done at a particular time with a similar situation at a different time. So such a kind of comparison. So one of the principles of included in this grounded theory is comparison. What he said today, if similar situation comes after 15 days, did he or does he stick to this same kind of thing or the word, the deed, isn't it? Whatever he said on that day, he is able to do the same thing, stick to the same thing after 15 days when the similar situation. So this kind of comparison is one of the principles when you talk about this analysis. When the data is collected today, even after 15 days, the same thing should also be reflected. So that kind of comparison is one of the principles. Next principle is coding the data. You have to code the data. So whatever that you are observing today, you have to code them. Otherwise, there would be confusion. What you observed today, you have to code it. So like this, so that it's a over interpretation does not arise. So when these things are coded, whatever that is observed, the events or the acts or the events that are observed today has to be coded. When this coding is done, then over interpretation of the things doesn't arise. So it's a question of confusion. In order to overcome the confusion, whatever the things are observed, day-to-day activities have to be coded. And that would be easy for you, categorization of the events or the acts of the people. Categorization of the events or the acts of the people, how the people are acting. That is possible when you code all those activities that on the base of your observations, everyday observations. Next is you have to record them also. You can also write a memo. Whatever that is observed or categorized, you have to write. Memo writing describes the aspect of the research in which the data are explored rather than described and categorized. So memo writing describes the writing part, whatever that is observed. You have to put it on the paper. That meant for describes, that memo writing describes the aspects of the research. Memo writing means describes the aspects of the research. Memo writing describes the aspect of the research in which the data are explored rather than described. You are not describing the events, but you are exploring the data. How the data is explored, that you are writing. So what are the various techniques that you have used for exploring the data? By using this kind of technique, this data is explored. You are putting all these things on the paper. You are writing it. That means when you are describing the aspect of the research, then we can call it as memo writing. Each and every aspect that is under study has to be described. That kind of written kind of thing is known as memo writing. Then theoretical sampling. Whatever that you have observed, whatever that you have explained or otherwise written, or they have any validity, that has to be again tested. That has to be tested. If tested on a simple, on a small sample, whatever your observations that you recorded has to be tested. If they're okay, then that would be possessing validity. Whatever your observations of the action, other things of the people, then if you can test them in the field, then if they are okay, whatever that is written, if you observe say the same thing, then we can say the results are valid. The results are valid when they already describe or written kind of things and the other things by using so much of process by the researcher. If they are really whatever that is written form, if it is seen or reflected in the field, then we can say that there is a validity. That is, validity is established of that particular research because they are valid. Whatever is written, observed, is also observed by taking a sample, by tested, by way of testing. By way of testing all those observations, if we get the same results and those values are valid, that can be applied. You can say application of those results is possible. And if the same thing is reflected when it is tested. Then literature review, because while doing this kind of research, you should also go through the literature. If there are any persons who have conducted study related to your topic, so you should also collect that kind of data. How far your results are very close to the other researcher who have done the same kind of research. Earlier researchers, if they have conducted the topic on the same topic earlier, then you have to compare your results. How far those results are able to support your results, or how your results are able to support the results of your previous researchers who have conducted the problems on the area which you are also probing. So if there is any relation, you can also say the results of my study is also supported by the results of those researchers who have conducted the same study earlier. You can also quote, but because that gives you the weight to your research values. If you are getting the same value with that of the results of other researchers, that means there is so much of validity. Application of the results would be very high. Application of the results would be very high if you are getting the same results with that of the other studies. The next one is discourse analysis. Another important technique that you can use for qualitative data analysis is discourse. You know pretty well what the discourse is. That means how language operates in real life communication events. Discourse analysis means how language operates in real communication events, how people are able to communicate, the language it plays with regard to the communication in their day-to-day life activities. How this language is playing its role with regard to the communication, the day-to-day life activities of the people. So if you can understand the kind of the activities that are happening in the society, relating how language operates for all these events. So studying the role of the language, studying the role of the language in the communication, communication of events. So for that purpose, we can use this discourse analysis. Discourse is how language operates in real life communicative events. Discourse analysis involves the analysis of speech, text, and conversation. So its concerns are with analysis beyond the level of the sentence. So therefore, it's not just because of the sentences. If you understand the discourse is how language operates in a discourses, that means the teachings or the preachings, how this language operates in real life communication events. Discourse analysis involves the analysis of speech, text, and conversation. So its concerns are with analysis beyond the level of the sentence. That means discourse analysis emphasizes the ways in which language interacts with the society. I think ఏదో అంటాం కదా తెలుగులో, there is also మాట మంచిదైతే ఏదో అంటాం కదా అనండి,
ఊరు మంచిదైతే ఊరు మంచిదవుతుంది.
ఊరు మంచిదవుతుంది. అది మంచి రిలేషన్స్ ఉండాలనుకుంటే how this language plays in the society with regard to the relations. మంచిగా మాట్లాడితే మంచిగా ఆన్సర్ వస్తుంది కదా. I think you are expecting the same answer, same respect from the people. Your speech is not good, that is not acceptable, then automatically there will be rejection also. So this kind of discourse analysis, especially in order to understand the relationships wherein the language operates, for that purpose, you are trying your level to use this discourse analysis to understand how this language plays with regards the relationships, prevailing of relationships among the individuals. In order to understand the relationships among the individuals, how this language operates is very important. For that purpose, we are trying to understand or using this discourse analysis is meant for understanding the relationships among the people with regard to the speeches, with regard to the language, with regard to the conversation. How they are conversing, there are certain rules. Am I right or wrong? There are certain rules. You cannot go beyond that. That's the reason why there are certain rules in the society which are prescribed. Tolerable, tolerance level, respect levels, and all those things are there. Our language will be good enough. Use very good language so that you get the same reaction. If you are not interested, you can use the language in the other way. You're also getting bad results out of your language. So therefore, this particular discourse analysis is meant for understanding the impact of the language with regard to the relationships which are prevailing in the society. Do they have harmonious relationships? Are there any conflicts? Are there any separations, divisions, elevated? Because language will bind the people also. Language will bind the people. It brings them closer. So therefore, how these relationships ought to be means, if you can understand the conversation, the speech, and the language. So all these three things would put together will tell you how the relationships are existing among the individuals. So in order to understand those relationships, we can use this discourse analysis. Discourse analysis means it's a question of understanding how this language operates in the communication of day-to-day events of the people. Then under that you have also seen the face. Face is the index of the mind, isn't it? Under Greece, face is the index of the mind. So under this, language often includes strategies for protecting the status of the various participants in the exchange. I think you can understand very well. Language often includes strategies for protecting the status of the various participants in the exchange. Exchange of views, exchange of opinions, exchange of other things also. So therefore, one of the rule is the phase, which talks about different strategies. Phase is it's a different strategy for binding the people. Next one is the register, the style of communication. Style means the style of communication. Register means style of communication. Style of communication, the language used in a lecture is not the same as that used when a sermon is being given. So therefore, when I'm lecturing, my language would be different. If I'm speaking to you personally, my language would be something different. So therefore, you have to understand how to use this language. If you want the other person to come closer, the language will be something different. If the person to go away from you, the language how you use would also be something different. Therefore, how this language, the register, how it registers the style of communication. Register means style of communication. So language may not be the same. While giving the lecture, it would be something different. While I'm speaking to personally or interacting with the individuals personally, that kind of language would be something different. So we have to see the variation with regard to the languages. Then also the practices and resources. Discourse analysis is not simply an approach to the social use of language. Social use of language means understanding the relationships. So discourse analysis is meant for understanding the relationships. So therefore, it is not only for simply an approach to the social use of language, it focuses on discourse practices, the things that people do in talk and writings. So what they do, it also focuses on what they talk, how people talk, what they talk, where they talk, why they talk, whom they talk, how they talk. These are the various questions which require answers, isn't it? There are 6 honest serving men. Those honest serving men are what, when, where, why, whom, and how. These are the 6 honest serving men. If you don't have any idea with regard to certain problem, then try to put all these questions. You try to find answer to that particular problem. These are the questions. They may appear as questions, but they are 6 honest serving men. 6 honest serving men. They will serve you if you do not have any idea about a problem that you are going to see this, isn't it? So therefore, my dear friends, these are some of the issues that needs to be studied just because the discourse analysis, just because not understand the social use of language, but also understand how people talk and write. But it also focuses on the resources that people employ in achieving these ends. For example, the strategies employed in their discourse, the systems of categorization they use, and the interpretative repertoire that are used. So interpretative repertoires are the broadly discernible clusters of terms. So the terms which are discernible, which can be disclosed, which should be avoided. So while using the language, certain things should not be used. You should be very careful about the words. Words provoke thought. Thought impulses action. Action creates habit. Habits form character. Character decides destination. This is the power of words. Words provoke thought. Thought impulses action. Action creates habits. Habit forms character. Character decides the destination. So this is the order how the words lead you to the destination. If you are good with regard to words, then automatically the destination would also be equally good. So therefore, you should be very, of course, what shall we say, clever in using the language. You should be very clever in using the language. How to maintain the relations means then your language will play a vital role. Your language will play a vital role with regard to the communication in different events that are occurring in the society. That will help you bind it together and how these relations are. For understanding that thing, we can use this discourse analysis. Discourse analysis means how language operates in the day-to-day life communication of the events of the people. Next one is the construction and description. During the conversation, other forms of text, people create and construct versions of the world. Discourse analysis attempts to understand and describe this constructive process. They try to understand the whole world. Forms a text. They write, text means writing part. It may be a document or it may be event that is documented, that is written. People create and construct certain versions about the world. The world is like this. They try to come to some kind of understanding, conclusion, isn't it? During the conversations and other forms of the text, by going through the text, documents, events, then writings, they try to understand or frame some kind of the versions of the world, how the world is all about. So therefore, content mean talk and other forms of discourse are regarded as the important site of psychological phenomena. No attempt is made to postulate underlying psychological mechanism to explain the talk. So racist talk is regarded as the means by which discrimination is put into practice. There is no interest in psychological mechanisms such as authoritarian personality or racist attitudes. So therefore, here in this particular discourse analysis, they are talking about there is no interest in psychological mechanisms. So you are not going to use the psychological mechanisms, but you are trying to understand the relationships that are prevailing in the society by way of various things through the conversation, to the speech, to the written documents, and other things. They will help you to understand how the relations are prevailing in the society. For that purpose, this discourse analysis will be used as one of the techniques for data analysis. Then the next one is conversation analysis. And maybe there are other things of cognition, action, stake and accountability, rhetoric. There are some of the, of course, principles or the rules that one has to follow when this discourse analysis is used as a technique. You should also understand what the content, what is rhetoric means. Rhetoric means oratory or inventory. Discourse analysis is concerned with how talk can be organized so as to be argumentatively successful or persuasive. So this rhetoric is also one of the sub-techniques of this discourse analysis. It is meant for inventing or how the talk can be organized, for organizing the talks. This rhetoric kind of element can be used as part of the discourse analysis. Similarly, stake and accountability. People regard others as having a vested interest in what they do, hence they impute motives to the actions of others, which may justify dismissing that these others say. Discourse analysis studies this process also. So therefore, stake and accountability should also be there. But whatever people say, they may not follow. They may do the same. The talk is different and the action or activities would be something different. So I think how they justify, for that purpose, there should be stake and accountability means people regard others as having a vested interest. That is stake. Stake means vested interest in what they do. Suppose if I am doing certain activity means I have some vested interest in that. I may benefit out of that. Therefore, I am doing that. I think such kind of things would also be there. All kinds of people would be there in the society. Hence, they impute motives to the actions of others. So therefore, they try to what exactly the motive by way of all these things, vested interest, what is their motive of actions. They may justify whether they should be dismissed such kind of people who are just for the sake of, vested interest. If they are doing for vested interest, I think you can justify that their talk is something different and their activity is something different. They are only doing for vested interest. You can dismiss them also. You can dismiss them, you can put them away from that so that the relations will not be spoiled. The relations will not be spoiled if you understand the the stake and accountability. Whether really meant for this or really doing it with the heart. Are they able to put their mind, body, and the spirit to the act? Are they doing it for vested interest, only for selfish ends? If they are doing it for selfish ends, I think that would be something different. That kind of, that kind of, what shall we say? The quality doesn't help for the harmonious growth of the society. For the harmonious relations of the society, you need to pick out such kind of candidates who are just working for their selfish ends, who are not able to pay their attention to the relations of the society. So such kind of people, if there are any such kind of people, and it's a warning. It's a warning if such kind of elements are there, then keep your eye on such kind of people. So this is what it says. Then cognition in action is also one of the elements for which should be used for discourse analysis. Discourse analysis actively rejects the use of cognitive concepts such as traits, motives, attitudes, and memory stores. Instead of concentrates on the text by emphasizing, for example, how memory is socially constructed by people, such as when reminiscing over old photographs. So they won't give that much importance to the traits, the motives, attitudes, and memory stores. But what is very important thing is they try to emphasize the texts, written documents. For example, how memory is socially constructed by people, such as when reminiscing over old photographs, when you look at the old photographs, then you try to bring in your old memories with regard to try to relate those things with that of the photograph. When the photograph is presented, when it was the time it was photographed, then try to bring all those memories which are stored in your mind when you look at that photograph. By understanding, because you can also use such kind of photographs and all the whatever that we discussed is, we can also project the photographs in order to understand the various issues. We can also use the written documents for understanding them, and also the how they converse, how the conversation is taking place. Through the conversation, you can also understand. Through the language, you can also understand. Through the speech, you can also understand how they are behaving in the society. In order to understand their behavior in the society, then we are using this discourse analysis. If your study is understanding, if your study is on understanding the relationships among the people in the society, means you can use this kind of discourse analysis, which contains many elements. Those elements are meant for analysis purpose also. Language is one element, conversation another element, content is another element, photograph is another element, document is another element. Similarly, how they talk is also another element. So these are the various elements which should be focused or emphasized or used, which should be used for getting the which are meant for getting the valid data, or I think they will help you for analysis purpose also. If you can use all these components or the elements in the discourse analysis, you are getting the whole picture of the society, how the society is behaving. So you are studying their language, their speech, and also how is it operating in the conversations, and also the text or the written parts, the documents, the photographs, and other stories, and also you are testing them also in the field. So I think these are the various elements or the components which can be tried out for analysis purposes of the data under qualitative research. Then the last one is conversation analysis. Conversation analysis has its intellectual roots in ethnomethodology, championed in the 1960s by the American sociologist Harold Garfinkel. He wanted to understand the way in which interactions in everyday life are conducted, how the interactions are conducted in everyday life. That will help you. In particular, ethnomethodologists are concerned with the ordinary everyday conversations. So social anthropologists, ethnographic studies, ethnographists, those people are concerned with this conversation analysis because they try to understand the conversation or the interaction that is taking place between the human beings. In 1960s, this has become a very good kind of technique that was used for understanding the society. So this is conversation analysis. In 1966, the American sociologist by name Harold Garfinkel, he wanted to understand the way in which interactions in everyday life are conducted. He has used this conversation analysis for understanding the interaction that is taking place every day. So for that purpose, what you have to do is, the researcher, what he has to do is, he has to record, he has to transcript, and he has to analyze. He has to record the events, then he has to transcription means understanding level. All those events have to be converted, transformed into meaningful kind of language. That is transcription, which is the recording or parts of the recorded or transcribed using the minute detailed methods. So whatever that is recorded has to be transcribed, and then finally you have to analyze. So these three methods need to be used in the conversation analysis for understanding the interaction that is taking place in everyday life of the people. So this can be conducted, conversation analysis can be conducted for understanding the interaction that is taking place every day in the society. For that, the first step is you have to record the interaction, then you have to transform that interaction into meaningful ones, then finally you have to analyze this particular interaction is on this area. They are interacting on this area. They are interacting the marriage of the people, or they are interacting with the family, or they are interacting with the other issues related to society. So that interaction, why is that interaction on which issue that interaction is taking place in the society? For that purpose, we try to use conversation analysis. So there are different methods. Under this, the first one is you have to record the interactions. The second one is transcription. The third one is you have to analyze that interaction, which is transcribed. Which is transcribed. For example, even our certificates have been transcribed into Italy language. Suppose if you want to take admission in the Italian universities, your certificates are to be transcribed into Italian language. Similarly, the interaction, whatever that is there, has to be transcribed for understanding purposes. What they spoke, what they convergent, how the conversation has taken place on which issue. So in order to understand that conversation, then you have to transcript that interaction and then analyze. So these are the various methods that we can employ for studying the society with regard to qualitative analysis. I think this is the biggest unit, it seems, and this is going to be one of the important areas, because this is the only unit that you can see how the analysis has to be done with regard to qualitative research. So far, we have seen the statistics, then qualitative techniques we have used, quantitative techniques we have used. But here, when you are interacting with the human beings, that interaction has to be analyzed. That interaction has to be analyzed means you should have thorough knowledge over all these things. So when you have to collect all this information through various sources, through the primary sources, through the secondary sources, and also other documents and other things. These are the various documents which will help for the researcher to come to certain understanding about his research. It not only interaction with the people, what are the items that were used, and what the interaction, the language, how it was used during the conversation. So if you understand all these things, I think that you are studying the society related to various aspects of the human life. You are studying the human life using all these techniques. So these techniques are, once again, if we go to the first one, that one is, so qualitative data analysis techniques. Number one is qualitative data collection. You have seen the different tools. Thematic analysis means that the data has to be understood, and from that you have to bring out the themes, also sub-themes. How this I think the data will describe you, tell you these are the themes of the data. If you look at the data, whatever that you collected, that will give you this is the area on which there was interaction, or this is the sub area on which they interacted, that society. Then third one is grounded theory, means you have to collect the data by keeping yourself or landing yourself in the field itself. And it should be very, very important for you, my dear friends, those people who are doing research, and you are supposed to be like those people. You have to change your dress, your fashion. If you want to study, especially ethnographic studies, they demands you to change complete your style. You cannot, suppose if you go to some census area, colonies, and they cannot give the answer. At times there would also be danger. If you know them personally, there is no problem. If you know the language, there is no problem. So language will be the barrier also for those researchers who are conducting the research on ethnography. That means certain pockets, especially those people who are living in hill areas who are not using our language. So I think there you require some assistance. You should also make friendship with those people who can know your language and their language. Is almost translating that language to the researcher. So familiarity is very much essential. Familiarity, closeness, mingling, mixing, and almost converging yourself with that of those people. If you want to get the data from them, complete picture of that particular colony or the people who are living away from the society, there I think you have to change the complete picture of yours. Then only I think you are going to get the data. And this is all about a few things related to techniques of qualitative data. So these are the important techniques that one has to understand for analyzing the qualitative data. So one is you have to use all the data collection methods. The second one is you have to come out with the themes. Then third one is then grounded theory. Then you have to collect the data. Then also there are different elements which should be followed. Then also conversation styles and other things. So these are some of the techniques: grounded theory, discourse analysis, conversation analysis. And all these 5 techniques need to be used by the researchers who are conduct studies related to qualitative research. Qualitative research is meant for describing getting complete picture of the individuals, how they are behaving in the society, how they are living in the society. I think that is possible when you make yourself complete or convert yourself into that particular style of the people, then they will respond. You get response when you convert yourself with that of those people. When you relate yourself with the people, when you know the language, then only is possible for you to interact. So therefore, these are some of the techniques that you can use for qualitative data analysis. And I think this is the only unit that is included, especially for qualitative data analysis. Qualitative data analysis. This only one unit is included in our course, research methodology. I think there's a possibility of getting this. There will be a question, possibility of getting an essay question. How the qualitative data will be analyzed. Then describe those techniques which can be used for qualitative data analysis. For qualitative data analysis, what are the various techniques that you can use? So such a kind of question may appear in the examination, or you may also get some short answer questions. It may be what is grounded theory in qualitative analysis, or otherwise explain discourse analysis in qualitative data analysis. So describe the technique of discourse analysis for qualitative data. Such kind of short answer questions may also appear. So to me, I think there may be a possibility of getting essay question because only one unit is included for the analysis of the qualitative data. So these are the various issues that we have to highlight when when there is a question that's given for your examinations purpose, and you just try to understand the society, how the society is moving, how the society is running. If you understand the various elements of the society, then I think that will help you to answer this particular qualitative analysis techniques also. Isn't it? That's all about for this. And if there are any questions from your side, you are most welcome. And tomorrow is the last day, and I'm going to complete it in 1 hour, and rest 30 minutes will be left out for reactions or reactions from your side. 21, unit number 21 and 22. I think I cannot take much time for discussion of those two units, and those two units will be complete in 60 minutes. Rest 30 minutes will be left out for discussion of the whole paper. Hello?
Everybody yes, likes to
sir.
say, oh, the first family sold out. Yes, the first family may have sold out, but it was the younger generation that decided we are going to stay there. Our
Hello?
roots
Hello?
are
Hello?
not
What?
there, and we will yes, sir. We can hear you.
Some disturbance?
No, the background.
What is that?
Nothing, sir.
Not too much of.
So I'm getting some sound from, yeah. Well, friends, this is all about the techniques of qualitative data analysis. And before that, we have seen techniques related to multivariate analysis, isn't it? So multivariate analysis techniques, that is also very good unit. There would also be a possibility of getting question on that. And also there is a possibility of getting essay question on how the qualitative data can be analyzed. How the qualitative data can be analyzed with different techniques. You can explain those techniques. Such kind of answer may be, a question may be appearing. So little bit careful about, not little bit careful. You should be very careful about from A to Z. All are equally important. Some people may ask me, sir, which is important question? Please, could you please tell me? I tell you, my dear friends, from unit number 1 to unit number 22, every unit is very, very, very important. So have thorough idea about all these things. And there is also repetition to my knowledge because your syllabus is included like that. Twice, I think there was a discussion on various issues also. So I think there is some kind of repetition of the units also. Then have fair idea about this particular paper. This will be useful for you in your future also if you want to conduct any research. It's not just because of your MSc psychology purpose, and even future to be a researcher. This knowledge is quite enough. This knowledge is not only for you, for every student, for economic student, for education student, for social anthropology student. Research methodology is a component. What shall we say? What shall we say? Yeah, is complete in the sense. So compulsory paper. It's a compulsory paper. Otherwise, they cannot conduct the research also. One of the papers of your PG would be on research methodology. Those people who are interested to go for further research, further studies, especially research, this knowledge is essential for them. That's all about for today's session. If any question from your side, you are most welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Saab. Anybody, please? Hello.
They don't own the building.
Yes, sir.
You didn't have
Tomorrow
that
we can
foresight
discuss,
to
sir, if
see it.
any
But
questions
felt
are
Yeah, I
there.
their
think we're
education
going to have
understood it since
30,
I'm a little
30
girl.
minutes. Somebody is
didn't want-
talking. There would be 30 minutes time that would be left out for you for a reaction on all the topics, isn't it? Wherever there is a doubt, any doubt with regard to this paper, you are most welcome. And I would like to finish those 2 units, 21st and 22nd, in 60 minutes. The rest 30 minutes will be left out for discussion. Okay, na? I
Okay, sir.
think
Thank
you are also getting all the, of course, PPTs. The PPTs which you have not received, please inform me also tomorrow so that I will also share.
Okay, sir.
That's all about for today's session. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Oh, still people are there. Wow. Sridevi, Saranala, Ashok Kumar, Sandhya Lakshmi, Amina, Samsung, Divya, Pooja, Udaini. 11 persons are there still on the screen. Shubhashini. Hello? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Oh, still you are there. Yes,
Yes, sir.
ఎవరు సుభాషిణి ఎస్ శ్రీదేవి గారు ఉదయని గారు మీ ఫొటోస్ లేవేంది ఇక్కడ ఐ కెన్ సీ యువర్ ఫేసెస్ ఆల్సో కదా సమ్ ఆఫ్ యువర్ ప్రజెంట్ ఆన్ ది ఇన్ ద ఆఫ్లైన్ సెషన్స్ సో యా ఐ కెన్ రికగ్నైజ్ యువర్ ఫేసెస్ ఆల్సో ఇఫ్ యువర్ దేర్ ఇన్ ది ఆఫ్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ సుభాషిణి వర్ యు దేర్ ఇన్ ది ఆఫ్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ సుభాషిణి గారు యూ డిడ్ ప్రెజెంట్ ఇన్ ద ఆఫ్లైన్ క్లాసెస్ నో I think mute lo undi. It is in mute, madam. Subhashini. Yeah.
No, sir.
Yeah,
No,
yeah,
sir.
yeah. You are not there. Then who are there in the offline classes?
I am working, sir.
Where are you
Okay.
working? Where are you working?
Vijayawada, sir.
Vijayawada. Acha, 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 acha. What are you there, madam Subhashini gar?
B.Ed college lecturer, sir.
Which college?
B.Ed, sir.
Which subject you are teaching there?
Psychology, sir.
Wow,
Psychology and
psychology. Without
philosophy.
psychology, how do you teach psychology? Now you are pursuing
Philosophy.
psychology. Okay, na? సుభాషిణి గారు ఏ కాలేజీ చెప్పండి విజయవాడలో
Hindi B.Ed college, sir.
హిందూ బిఎడ్ కాలేజా
Hindi
Hindi
Prachar Sabha.
oh హిందీ
Okay.
బిఎడ్ కాలేజ్ నా ఓకే ఈజ్ ఇట్ గవర్నమెంట్ నో
No, sir. Autonomous.
autonomous
Hmm.
how can it be autonomous is it aided
No, sir. No, sir.
ఎయిడెడ్ కాదు గవర్నమెంట్ కాదు ఓకే ఎనివే